jumping in. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're doing great. This is one of our afternoon sessions on Hump Day. So welcome to our experience exchange. It's kind of we're rebranding a little bit our monthly sessions. We're here to really talk about what's going on in the industry. What are some of the challenges we're seeing? What is some of the new, either whether it's tech or opportunities or solutions out there. But CX is timely, and so it's changing so fast. Many of you may have heard me talk about this. We used to quote major changes in business at the decade level. Once a decade, twice a decade, maybe two, three times a decade. Then it was maybe at the year level, once a year, maybe a couple of times a year. They're expecting that it's like 2027. It's like monthly. I mean, we're on rate to where major shifts in how we do things are going to happen at a monthly level. And gosh, if you're like me, you're already seeing a lot of that. We're getting excited to have you here. This is a little bit of a different structure. Sometimes in the past, we've had like a special speaker come on and talk about their stuff, and then we do breakouts. We're going to just engage as a team in this session. A big part of what we're trying to be as a differentiator to everyone else out there is we're not just a Slack channel. We have sessions, but not only do we have sessions, it's not just webinars where most people attend and watch and listen, and technically they're tuning out the whole time. We want it to be dialogue. And so that's the intent here. It sometimes can be a little bit intimidating when you're in a big group. So we're going to have the first half of the meeting is going to be kind of all of us. I'm going to ask key panelists to kind of share their thoughts about the CX signals right now, the things that are sticking, the things that are struggling,
from home tomorrow,
what they're seeing.
We'll see you next week.
And then we'll jump into breakouts where we can actually dig deeper and pull the layers back on those subjects because it's real and it's now, and we're here for that. So anyway, great opportunity. So most of you know me. I'm Sean Albertson. I would like to throw out, like I do in the newsletter all the time, love to spend time chatting with you guys. Learn what you're looking for, what you're hoping to get out of the community and the collective, and really understand your needs, because that's really what we're trying to do is solve your challenges and help you, whether you're a consultant, a practitioner, et cetera. We're trying to find ways to create more value in the program and ultimately make sure that you're at the center of that value. So I always recommend grab some time with me, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, and let's talk. I'd love your feedback as well. My focus, and I'm not going to belabor what I'm seeing, but what I'm seeing, and maybe this will resonate a little bit with, I'm sure, what Dave is going to talk about, is I'm seeing like this resurgence of journey mapping. It's journey mapping is really old. It's kind of old. It's not but it's like a resurgent. I see you laughing a little bit, Dave. It's like a resurgent coming around. A lot of people asking and thinking about that, partly because they realize that they can't just gather feedback and that be enough. It has to be very specific to a purpose, and the journey is being a big part of that. So that's my 2 cents of what we're doing, but I know we're gonna jump into some of those topics probably. So I'm gonna pick on my panelists. Skip, I'm gonna go to you first. Skip, quick introductions, and what are you seeing? What are the big signals right now that you're seeing in this space?
Yeah, Skip Picciano, former agent, former sales guy, now consultant with Fortune 30 companies, startups, and everything in between. And what I want to do with everybody that's on this call after the call is to step away from the keyboard and come play pickleball with me. We're doing it in, let me see, we're doing it
Yes.
in a couple
Yes.
in Colorado, we're doing it in Arizona and in Texas. We're also doing lunch and learns at venues and restaurants, and I'm really trying to get past this post-COVID stuff of everybody operating in their pajamas. I'm guessing that half the people on this call are wearing shorts and no shoes. Well, put your pickleball shoes on, come out, and we're going to talk about things like why NPS is not a measure of loyalty. We're going to talk about things like, is AI going to take everyone's job? And when we get into AI, what's the right blend, right? Everybody's worried about their CEO coming at them and saying, go get me some AI. Well, that's where Sean's point and Dave's point of coming in and doing that journey mapping, seeing where the use case might be, and putting it all together and saying, here's where automation makes sense, here's where it don't, and here's where the two come together on a human blend. That's all I got, Sean.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Skip, for that. And I didn't know there were actual pickleball shoes. Are there actual shoes for pickleball?
Sneakers.
Okay. Stacy's nodding. All right. I had no clue, but good to know. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing that. It kind of goes back to what I was saying a little bit, that net promoter score and so forth, and AI being a big topic of change. So on that, Chris, I know you work a lot with teams on implementing technology, especially in things like AI, et cetera. So yeah, share a little bit of what you're seeing.
So two examples today, sorry, it's Wednesday. So tomorrow I'm speaking to a Vistage group here in Dallas. Vistage is small CEOs, right? CEOs of small medium companies. Yesterday, and I know how this sounds, I apologize. I don't get to brag like this very often. Yesterday, I was speaking at MIT in Boston. No kidding, it was amazing. I felt like they'd mistaken me for someone who was a genius. Anyway, two different opposite ends of the spectrum, and I'd love to hear what other people think about this. It's so easy to start talking about the leading edge of all this stuff, right? Whether it's how AI is going to change CX and it's doing this, and agents are going to change the whole world. But every time I talk to one of these organizations, they are way, way behind on that. And the reason they're way, way behind is almost inevitably people, right? So when I was in MIT, I was very hesitant to talk about robotic process automation, which can accelerate customer experience by doing all the routine tasks while the agent is talking. And I thought, well, these guys must be all over this, right? This is MIT. And the facility was unbelievable, the room and all that. They're not. And here's the case I want to bring up. They have three operating bots, right? So three operating bots, which means a bot assigned to do a particular task. But they've been at it for 6 months. And here's the reason. They brought in Automation Now, or Automation Anywhere, which is a company. They did one bot. Then they brought in Deloitte and they did another bot. And then they said, hey, we need to train somebody to learn how to do this within our company. And then they took forever and it didn't happen and whatever. And so I stood up on the stage, not knowing this, by the way. I stood up on the stage and said, so how much do you guys know about robotic process automation? And they all, do you know the fist and five? I said, fist and five. You don't know anything about it. You know everything about robotic process automation. All these fives come up. And then I said, okay, now tell me the truth. What are you actually doing with robotic process automation? And the numbers go, well, like this kind of. So the big takeaway I'm getting both from the big organization like MIT, and this happens to be their lab, their Lincoln lab, and then these small Vistage companies, is the shiny new ball of ChatGPT 5, which happens to be the shiny new ball this week, right? Is distracting the hell out of people. And what I see as an opportunity is to get them to start making traction on things that work, right? And moving forward on the things that work and try not to insult them and say, "Okay, take your eyes off the shiny new ball," because everybody wants to look at the shiny new ball. But say, spend 5% looking at the shiny new ball, 95% figuring out how to implement some of these tools. So that's what I'm seeing. I would love to hear what you guys are, when we break off or whatever. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. I introduced a slide where you have people, process, and technology on it, right? We've all seen that. And I said to every one of them, what's the most important thing? And I caught myself and I said, no, let me start again. What's the thing we focus on first on this page? And what did they all say? Technology, right? And then I said, okay, what do we all think is the most important? And everyone to a person said people. And I said, is that what you're doing at MIT? And they were like, no. So, anyway, even the smartest among us struggle. That's my big message for what I'm seeing. I'd love to talk, hear more people's experience on that.
Yeah. Oh, I actually think sometimes the smartest people by default they struggle more than most because they're thinking about this, more from the technology perspective, and that's it, from that perspective. But yeah, great addition there. And what we're doing kind of here just is we're going to kind of go through our panelists, and then we're going to break into the room. So the third one in this group, so Skip, Chris, and JP is next in this group. They're going to be leading kind of this conversation about their topics where you can dig deeper. So Dan, kind of that conversation of CX and CEM technology will be great for that breakout to jump into. But JP, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so it's really a mix of what Skip and Chris talked about. I think, AI has been quote unquote overdone from a degree, everything from we're going to get rid of you to agentic agents. At the same time, people were saying, wait, we didn't even get the other stuff right. What's this agentic agent stuff about autonomy? So we're having to battle that discussion, right? And I couldn't agree more with you, Chris. What's happening is publicly there is a gold rush, if you will, on AI, but privately, when you pull people aside, I mean, if you said 30%, I mean, yeah. And even as Mr. Contact Center, when I ask people how are you using it, I get some sort of answer around, well, we primarily use it for QA. So we're not even scratching the surface of everything that it can do. So it is just very much, yeah, publicly we're going to talk about it so our competitors don't know we're behind. Then privately it's not there. The second thing, when I look internally, it's really about, again, my bias is toward contact center and all things CX. We're measuring some crazy stuff or things that don't move the needle. I mean, when you look at customer satisfaction scores right now, they've been dropping for 3 straight quarters, and they are literally at the same level they were 12 years ago. So how the heck are we focusing on experience where the needle hasn't even moved? We're not looking at customer effort. We're not looking at retention. We're not looking at first contact resolution or tracking any of those in a meaningful way, apart from the tried and true HTC, SAT, NPS. Like I said, don't get me started. But as a former practitioner turned consultant, these are the things where I will go deep and dig in, because at the end of the day, we really need to be outcome driven. And those outcomes are a function of customer growth and revenue and profitability. And that's where we've got to get better from a CX perspective in telling that story.
Awesome. Well, definitely why you guys are grouped together in this, because again, I think, I know JP, you talk a lot, people process technology. Chris just brought it up. Skip, you and I talk about that a lot as well. They all play a role, but it's the intersection of that. How do we drive that? Because at the end of the day, to deliver technology, people have to use it. I mean, they have to be willing to use it, and people have to implement it. So it still comes back to people ultimately at that context as well. So that's going to be group number one. So here in a little bit, when we break into rooms, we'll let you jump in, to that room. So remember that group one for Skip, Chris, and JP. So team two,
Easy black
group
shirt.
two.
By the way, the black shirts are all.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Well, Stacy's got a black shirt too, but anyway. So the next group, Stacy, Dave, and Brad. I'm gonna have Stacy. I'm gonna have you jump in first and just talk a little bit about what are you seeing right now. I know you're interviewing a lot of people in the Doing CX Right podcast and all of that great content. So I know you're seeing a ton these days. So what's top of mind to you and most actionable now?
Yeah, we don't have enough time, but I'll sum it up as fast as possible. So one is you talked about journey mapping, journey management definitely is people are understanding more what that means and that it's needed. However, when you talked about satisfaction before, what I've seen and what I think people are starting to hear me scream from the rooftops is stop measuring satisfaction. That is average. That is just like when my kids tell me their food was fine. Fine is not great, good enough. So when you are actually going through the journey of your customer, I want you to think about, and I've trademarked this in the emotional highs from where they learn, buy, get, use, pay, get help. Where are the emotional highs and lows? Measure that, fix that, scale that. Aside from that measurement perspective, I would also say I'm seeing a trend of AI used in training. So, not just call center agents, but also your salespeople, that AI simulation is a big trend that you can practice with the AI, role play, and actually do it before your boss hears your outcome. And it's so good because it boosts your confidence and gets you ready for your first call or your first customer interaction. So that is another trend that I've been speaking to a lot of AI companies that are excelling in this, and I think it's a hot one, and happy to share more about that. I'll pause.
Awesome. Well, Thanks, Stacy. I know, and again, you really hit on it. So we're going to go right next to Dave, on the theme of kind of journey. But it goes back to, I think that is so important these days, because understanding the journey is a prerequisite to understanding how are you going to use AI, because it's got to fit it somewhere. You've got to think of it in a use case and an ROI. So Dave, what are you seeing right now?
Thanks, Sean, and everyone else for teeing me up so well. I'm Dave from Seton CX, the journey mapping company. And whenever I'm asked, like, what's the future going to look like? What's changed? I like to start with what's not changing. And no matter what we read in the news, the fundamentals of customer experience aren't changing. Customers are still on a journey to accomplish their goal. And to the extent that we can help them be successful and make it easy for them to do so, then they're going to feel good about giving us their money. Let me give you two quick examples. Earlier this year, we worked with a company to improve a specific micro journey, an issue resolution journey. Now, in just 90 days, we were able to research the customer experience, map the journey, and act on the insights. And the result was an 81% improvement in issue resolution time. Now, if I'd said 20%, you'd nod politely and forget about it. But anyone who's been in business for 5 minutes, 81% in 90 days, you've got two possible reactions. Either one, Dave Seton is a liar, or two, we got to figure this out, because 81% is a huge improvement. Here's another one, different client, much larger journey. We did the research, mapped the journey, made the changes. They reduced customer churn from this journey by 66% year over year. That's a 7-figure boost to their annual recurring revenue. Again, if I'd said 20%, you'd be like, yeah, okay, good job, Dave. But 66%, either I'm full of it or this stuff works. So what's not changing is journey thinking. Focus on what's the customer trying to accomplish, help them be successful, make it easy, make it feel good along the way. What is changing is how we do the work. And so in today's tech-enabled enterprise, we're using AI not in a customer-facing role, but actually to accelerate the insight gathering and the action. So AI, software, automation to accelerate how we understand customers and make improvements to this journey to drive the business value. And so that's the future of CX, and it's already happening now.
Yeah, and Dave, and I'll just tell the rest of you, Dave's not a liar. No, I mean, those are great stories, and I know, I know I'm seeing some of the same thing and working with companies that, when you get past the aggregate improvements and really focus on the journey, you can see some major and amazing results. Partly because most people get too caught up with trying to boil the ocean and can't really get any results, if anything. So, and Brad, I know that we're talking, these two lead-ins. We're talking about the journey and and journey optimization. But again, for CX professionals, there's a lot of your past is your future. There's a lot of changes, and the future is different. So, whether it's journeys or other things, I think you were going to share and talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of employment in the CX profession and future proofing careers too.
Yeah, no. Hi, everybody. Brad Smith. Previously, Chief Customer Officer at companies like Yahoo and Sage, and been doing CX since the early 2000s. So very passionate about the space. And since founding my own business, helped over 55 clients around the globe doing this stuff. But one of the things I'm really focused on, especially because of my work with the CXPA and being on the board there, is there a profession? What does a CX career even look like? And how do we future-proof ourselves for this? And, one of my favorite sayings if you hear this phrase, you might want to take a moment and assess the situation. Well-intentioned, self-empowered people kind of scare me. And I think what I'm seeing right now over the past 6 months is a pervasive rollout of things like Copilot as a part of a Microsoft Office suite. And everybody's being told, oh, use AI every chance you get and use it everywhere you can. And everybody's fancying themselves as some sort of quasi-expert in all things customer experience. And then they use their, their company provided AI tools to start to do things. And what it starts to introduce is crazy vectors in that entire customer journey and in that entire customer experience. How we speak to our customers, what those interaction points look like, how we measure success, how you roll stuff out, the whole go-to-market thoughtfulness. It's now being automated almost to the lowest common denominator of what the bespoke, office tool will say. And so not understanding what these unintended consequences are, not doing this with a strong understanding what your branded promises are and what your CX North Star is, the lack of governance of any way, shape, or form, it's making the people who own CX inside of these companies, their job 1,000% more stressful, because now anybody can impact the customer experience without any adult supervision. And so how do you get your arms around that? How do you talk about it intelligently? How do you do all the cultural change and the change management now that everybody has tools and they kind of think of themselves as a CX connoisseur? So that's a conversation I'm pretty excited to lead, and making sure that you're ready to have the conversation and you've got all the skills and tools you need to be equipped for that.
Awesome. We're gonna transition now because I know we set this up for 45 minutes. We may go just a little bit over, so if you're able to stick around for bonus time, that'd be awesome. I'm gonna open up the rooms. We got group one with Skip, Chris, and JP, Stacy, Brad, and Dave in group two. It should pop up on your screen. If it doesn't pop up on your screen, you can go to the breakout rooms at the bottom of the screen and choose one of the rooms. So I'm going to open them up now. And this is an opportunity to really dig deeper, right? It's hard to do in a big group. And so we want to break into smaller groups here and really dig in to the discussion a little bit deeper. So opening up the rooms now. I'll see you guys in there. So welcome back. This is for the recording because I forgot to hit play or go again. But you had a lot of great conversations at the breakout, and I really was wondering, anybody get something really big that they took away from the discussion? What resonated most in this in the breakout, and maybe something new you looked at. So who wants to jump in?
I say Kate because she didn't talk in our group. We didn't let her. Kate, it's your turn.
Well, we kind of got to the end of our group. What I think is really the point that I am seeing the most, and it's exactly what Stacy already shared, is that it's all about emotion and making it easier for the customer. We kind of talked about some fails that some companies have done. Maddie shared that there was a fast food company that rolled out to all of its locations a screen. So when you walk up to the counter, you interacted with a screen that was somebody in Thailand taking your order, and that just did not go over well. I think all of us here would scratch our heads and go, how could anybody think that would go over well? But the problem is that some people, when they're just looking at that bottom line, cutting the budget, we're going to hire somebody in Thailand that works for, pennies on the dollar. And that's really what we're fighting against, is helping companies understand that it's not about saving money, it's about increasing revenue. And we can increase revenue when we give people those emotions of, hey, this was easy, or hey, I felt good, or hey, when I called in, there was this robotic process automation. On the other end, the customer's not going to know. To Chris's point, that we are going to provide the tools to make the experience better for employees, which will be better for customers, blah, 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 blah. But I think that's really for what I'm seeing, and what's really resonating with me and the people that I'm speaking to on a daily basis is that emotion. And I think that's why journey mapping is having the resurgence, because I don't think we tied emotion into revenue in the same way that we are now, and that AI is enabling us to hyper focus on what is going to, in that journey, cause those friction points. So I love that we are revisiting journey mapping.
And we've overcomplicated it too, because like pissed off people don't like to spend money. That's your emotion right there.
You talk about things that have shifted, like omni-channel, cloud-based, remote work, and all the hype around AI, but sometimes we forget about the things that stick around. And Kate did a great job of talking about that. Empathy, speed, depending on the business, maybe it's compliance. Those things stick around because those are the things we need. And when we start looking at shiny new balls, we got to remember to keep those things in play. And when we do crazy things like screens in Thailand, even though I was trying to give it another use case, but we got a little excited on the call there. Because
Sorry.
Matt likes to get excited. I don't know. He drinks too much coffee. But
I,
we got to remember those basic elements, those foundational elements of empathy, speed, handle time, making things effortless. Sean and I talk about that over and over again. So, how do we leverage the human touch, maybe with some technology on a walk, run, fly basis?
I would I would add that lean into technology where it boosts the human confidence.
Mhm.
So AI simulation, I've been talking a lot about that. There's a
Mhm.
lot of good companies that are allowing you to use that simulation to practice before you get talking to real customers. And it is so powerful. So there's a lot of solution providers, but I just wanted to say that lean into that.
and when you gamify it, you accelerate the adoption of that technology. So not just expose
Sure.
people to it, but they actually want to use it.
Cool. I got a bus, guys, but appreciate the conversation. We'll do it again next time.
Yeah. Who else has got maybe something to share? Well, we got a few more minutes before we break.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, well, because there was a discussion about, of course, AI and where is useful and where it's not. And I think that what was discussed in group one is, yes, we have to go to the basics, provide a good customer service, but if through the kiosk we get, I think, some kind of information, that is where AI could get useful in terms of customizing messages to that person after the I don't know, the purchase or the action, and AI could help to segment similar behaviors and send messages that engage and extend that relationship or build that relationship between that fast food company or whatever with that client. So that's where I think AI could be useful and not exactly providing the initial steps in the relationship that a client has in a particular store.
Absolutely. I'll say this and I'll shut up. I think it was, I forget who made the point, but they said these things run in cycles. And what I see, what's happening with AI now is what I saw in the contact center world with offshoring. There's such a bias towards reduce the cost, lowest common denominator, and it destroyed the experience. And I see that happening with AI now, where it's just like it's cost at all. That seems to be the key driver, but not how do you amplify the experience and drive profitability. So my 2 cents.
Amen. I said exactly the same thing in our breakout, JP.
Yeah, I think we're at a point now. I mean, AI is going to be a part of it. And, we've talked a little about why do we, even to the point of why CX is on the rocks is because some of it is kind of on the rocks. There's a lot of challenges in the space and things like surveys and the nouns are kind of, the people, the roles, the surveys are kind of all in flux. There's a little bit when cost becomes an issue, but the experience is more important now than ever. And I think the reality is, it goes back to whatever a company is doing, having a very strong strategy around the experience that they're creating for various different purposes. That's hard though, And a lot of companies don't want to spend the time or energy to kind of create this holistic strategy of how are we going to use people and AI and things like that. They're chasing a revenue line, or sorry, a cost reduction line because it's tangible and it's easy. And until they, many cases, these same executives, until they do it and realize they've sacrificed the experience to a point which all that efficiency is gone because the loyalty has been eroded, they won't realize that. And unfortunately, that's the position we're all in, is at whether we're in businesses doing it or from the outside as in supporting other businesses, we're kind of championing this cause, but we've got to get through this shiny, I think it was Chris, you keep saying the shiny ball object, focus. And that's hard to do. But it's why a community like this is so important. So I'm glad you guys all joined. Thank you for the great discussion. I hope you got a lot out of the breakouts. We got solution series coming the next 2 weeks. They'll be online shortly, and already planning our September stuff. So everybody take care. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you on one of our upcoming events. Thank you very much.